Hi everybody, it's Z from the Plejaren Diaries. You know, the live long and prosper sort of thing. Anyway, this is a continuation of the one-on-ones. And the last time I left off was when they let me go and walk around and see all these ships. And then towards the end, Sam just come and met with me, and we actually went on one of the ships that wasn't secured, and so she could show me around, and then we had this experience with in the what I call the holodeck, or it's like on the Star Trek thing. Anyway, uh, we were leaving, and it was time to go, so we kind of skedaddled out of that ship before anybody saw us, and we were running through the swamp, and we were getting back. Still, I wasn't aware if this was here, where I'm used to, or not. And but it was very similar, almost identical. And so we're running along, and we get into the swamp area, and we start hitting some of the game trails, making our way back to the lab ship. And this thing started to happen to me where I felt like almost like a blanket was around me or something, where it was like slowing me down and stopped me and was holding on to me. Yet I wasn't resisting. But Sam Jess noticed too, and she was asking, are you okay? And I said, I didn't know what to say really. I was just starting to become experiential in a moment. And I just started feeling really, really good. And I started to, I felt like I was coming off of the ground, but yet Sam Jess is right here, grabbing onto my arm, and she wasn't going anywhere at all. She was going with me. And so I noticed that once we were above, everything heightened, and it was dark out, and suddenly I could see everything, even though it was still dark. Everything sort of like glow, and and she started to relax her hold on me and realized what was taking place. And uh, I started to hear the bugs and everything out in the forest starting to make all these noises, and it was almost like a symphony. It was different than what I had ever experienced before, and throughout myself, I was just feeling at such a peace. And I'm thinking in my head, of course, our brains aren't as good as what our senses are, and but we seem to lean towards more of the our bodies and brain and such. And so I'm going, this is odd, what's happening? And uh, so Sam Jess, is kind of doing this sort of thing at me and trying to figure out, am I okay? And I know she knew what was happening at the time, but she was checking on me. And then as all those noises started to come along, and from all the bugs and everything, nature, and I started to see, it looked like the leaves and things of the trees were moving. And then I started to see these things that kind of looked like jellyfish. There was a blue tint all around us, and I see these, like, you know, jellyfish swimming. Is like I was in the ocean, and I was completely surrounded, at the bottom of the ocean where I could see everything, and all these jellyfish were swimming around me. And then, in ordinary circumstances, that would be a bad thing, right? But this was way different. It's kind to me, I guess you could imagine like those pictures where you see all the orbs, at night or something. Well, it was like that, except for these, what I call jellyfish. They weren't jellyfish, they were just beings, and they were floating, and they were all around. And I was just in awe of this. And then Sam Jess started to chime in and help me along with this. And she said that, she told me that they were beings, and that they're here all the time, all over Earth. And, all and I go, what, well, why have I never seen them before? And she says, well, I probably have, but dismissed it because they're on another plane within, right? And uh, at any time we can go out and we get into the darkness or into nature, and we're going to be able to see these if we look. And obviously we can, because we've taken photographs of very similar things. But it's just a matter of love, right? Again, you know I always keep going back to that word love, but it's absolute. It's that which activates all the stuff that we thought was mystical, and things about traveling and doing all these special things, that people didn't quite understand it. And it goes back, I hate to keep reviewing, but we're in survival mode on Earth, and we've passed survival a long time ago, and so we use our whole brain, but the problem is that there are still gaps in that brain, and the gaps are waiting to be filled because we've reached our evolutionary process, right? So the only next step to complete that process is to fill those vacant spots within your brain with love. And I know that I have cheated in a way, right? Because I met these people, and in order for me to have this ongoing conversation or ongoing experiences with them, I had to completely release everything, right? I had to let go of, hiding anything. In other words, what I'm speaking of hiding is like how we do it here on Earth, where we have a different conversation for each person we meet. I mean, when you're with your employer, or whoever you're maybe with, you have a different face in a sense. And so, because that's what we think is appropriate. And, to do what I do with these people isn't practical here yet, because you're completely open. I call it naked, being naked, where you don't hide anything, and you're completely free, and everybody knows everything about you. So there's nothing to hide. You can't lie, and you can't put on a face. You can't make things softer. You just have to allow, being completely open, and you're accepted in that way, and that's where I think the problem is because here people might not quite accept us in most circles, pretty near all of them, right? But there, it's a requirement. And so, I'm in that mind state, and we're floating, and I'm not afraid or nothing, and I'm not focused on that. It's like that's the other thing too about being with them. You can't get caught up in what you're thinking. That's reversal in a sense. You have to continually be moving forward or be open for the experience, and that's where I was. And so I'm hearing all this beautiful music being made by all the bugs and wildlife. I'm looking at this intense beauty about in the complete darkness where I'm able to see, and then I see these beings, these well we call them beings, but they're my jellyfish, right? And they just float around, and it's just so beautiful. And then it got to a point where I felt like I was full, and at that point we both came down, and we were back to where we were, and they just sort of dissipated. And I think it was because it's our brain doesn't run us, it's our spirit. And when we have separation between those two, we're spirit, we're all things. And so things work out differently unless we try to, take a different street, And so, anyways, we continue on. We get back to the ship and everything, and um, all's, they were waiting for me and such, and it was kind of like time to review what I had experienced. And while we're there, the captains, like at this time they're still so formal with me, all except for Sam Jess, and so he's letting everybody know we're going to go back to the meeting room so that we can discuss what my adventure was like and all, and review it, in other words. And I asked Captain, can we just do it here, kind of like in the living room and such. And that's what I call, the main room. And, it's just a little more informal. I don't do well in really restricted environments, and where it's supposed to be professional and stuff like that, where this is anything but, in my sense. The professionalism is not to be that. And so anyway, they all gather, and kind of set him back a little bit. He's not used to that, being the captain and all. And so here we go. Everybody comes in, and they start to talk about what I saw and what I experienced. And one of the things I brought up was, as I'm walking along and I look back, and it, like, the ships were disappearing. The farther I walked forward, the more it disappeared. I turn around, I come back, and they start to reappear again. And it's it's in a way they're a form of optical illusion without being that. And I think that had a lot to do with why, like, one time when I asked the captain, when we see them, uh, what's the plan? I mean, can we always see them or what? And he says, well, um, we would never see them if they didn't want to be seen or if they didn't care. And all these different, not just the Plejarens. And so, anyways, I thought that was interesting. And then I talked about, when I saw the main ship in the center, and it was a little difficult at first because I couldn't quite see it well, with all the other ships around. But this was like a massive ship, and so I wanted to see more of it. And then eventually, one of the ships took off and left an opening there. And so, I kind of worked my way around to that and was looking at them, and I could see all these people coming and going, and most of them would appear to have been like the Plejarens were to me, more like us. And I could see subtle differences, but I was at a distance where I couldn't really see a lot. I did notice that some of them had like a uniform, what I would call a uniform on, and many of them were a lot shorter, even shorter than us, but they were still human looking. And then others weren't, of course. And so I asked the captain, I was curious, what was going on there. And he explained that they didn't know. And he also further explained that if they were told that I couldn't know, then that's what they would tell me, that they couldn't tell me. But just didn't know. So that was left open. And then there was another part where I was explaining about mother. They asked about the lady that I saw, that with the children. And um, that was interesting for me. And like I said to them, you gave me these rules to follow, and that I couldn't approach any closer than a certain distance, and that they would have to acknowledge me if I was to talk to them, or whatever, or make contact in some way. And I had noticed the kids, they were getting down close to the water or the canal. And in my head, I'm thinking, well, this earth, if this is earth, then there's a lot of dangers there. And that, I would think that they would understand that. And gators and snakes and things like this. And um, I was debating really quickly in my head, do I even make a point of it? If she's not going to acknowledge me, then I'll just move on. But what if something happened? What if I was right? And so I didn't take it for granted. And so I started to get to that point of, no return, crossing the line, in other words. And she just wasn't looking at me. She was so busy looking at the plants and things that were around there. And so I got to right where I knew the line was, right? And it was like, I got to do this. If I get in trouble, fine. If I don't, that's okay too. But so I, picked up my foot to make that step over the next line, and she looked at me. And, I could tell it wasn't pleasant that, I had breached or came close to breaching. And so I just made hand gestures that, about the kids and danger, sort of thing. And she looked at me, and then she looked at the kids, and she ran and got the kids and brought them back in place. And so when I saw that, I had already turned and started to move on, because I wasn't, what do you call it, welcomed. And I had to actually push the point. And so I figured, problem solved, I'm on my way. And so as I'm walking away, I kind of looked back, and I could see her looking at me. And so I just kept going. And then eventually, uh, like, I talked to, or ran into Sam Jess, and we did our little excursion, investigated the unguarded ships, just so she could show me what it was. They call them scout ships, or at least gave it to me to refer to it as scout ships, or the ones that were surrounding. And again, I thought it was like an RV or so. But so we went through that, and then we started talking about the jellyfish experience. And the captain was interested because he had had experiences with them too. And they told me also that it was an experiential moment. And so, I'm, like I say, when I don't ever question them, you know, uh, for the most part. And I just keep going because there's more to come, right? And I'll figure it out as I go, And so, um, I put that in, pocketed that into one of my brain cells, and if I have any left, and trying to think, no, I don't know if I do, but anyway, I pocketed that for later. And usually, what happens is I kind of figure things out on my own, and it's like when I do ask a question, their answers are like you're expecting a paragraph, right, for an answer, and they give you one sentence. And I've started to understand that because I have to fill in the blanks, and because then it becomes, a genuine, learning. Where if they had told me all the details, then I'd be following somebody else and maybe not quite understood it. Kind of like for every person who reads a book, they got a different interpretation, even though it's somewhat similar. Well, this way it's mine, and so I own it. So we got through that, and the captain said, "Okay, well, mother, had a really that's the lady's name who I had the kids down there and stuff. Wanted to give me a blessing, and they kind of let on to how that was uh, really something because this lady is extremely important to their people. And I was thinking about, man, I'm dog tired and all that, and I know ceremony here. I've been in it. I can speak with authority about ceremony, and sometimes it really goes on long, and I'm exhausted. I mean, first, all this. Giving this opportunity for me to go and witness these things, and the energy that's expelled and all that, and then having that experience on the way back, right? With the jellyfish and all, and Sam Jess is constantly intense, and so anyway, I was, hesitant, but I asked the captain. I said, I'm very tired, and I really want to be conscious for this ceremony, if that's what she wants to give me. I don't know why or anything, but obviously it was an honor, and I didn't want to disrespect that. And I asked the captain. I said, could I just go and get my things done and get some rest, and then come back, and come back at a time when mother, she could be there, and that I would really appreciate that more. And so he agreed and thought that would be great. And so that's what happened. And so, I went back home and got caught up in everything. And uh, so once I was all caught up in within myself and rested and all, it's just like clockwork. I started to feel this static, and the static, meant they were sensing me or coming for me. And so anyways, Sam Jess shows up, and this time she showed up, she had more of appropriate wear, right? She had like a sweatsuit on with dorky looking tennis shoes, and a hat backwards, ball cap backwards, with aviator sunglasses. And so anyway, she said, "You ready?" And about like the ceremony and all that and everything. I said, "Well, you know what? I think this would be kind of cool. We could go for a little trip here. I could show you some stuff." And so she got excited, and you know, um, she's so different from the rest of them, and I'm beginning to learn how special that she is, and those sort of things. And so um, I want to take her to the mall, and I figure I could get away with this, and where nobody would notice, especially with the way she had the sunglasses and stuff that would cover her eyes and all. And so I just felt like I wanted to do that. And so, anyways, I look outside and there's nobody around or anything. So we go to my Jeep, and I open the door for her to get her in, and she's sitting down, and she's look, this is your transportation, and I go, yeah. And so I buckle her in and make sure she's good, and then go around and get in my side and start it up. and the music comes on, and so I hope that maybe that'll calm her down, because she's getting really anxious in there and nervous, and it's only like 15 minutes, at the long way, to get to where the mall is for me. And so um, we start to take off, and she just like flat out panics. I felt like I had a family of kids in the car, that were going nuts, and felt like saying, "I'm gonna pull this car over," and sort of thing. And anyways, we made it there, and she hated the Jeep. She hated the vehicle and our kind of transportation. And so, she's trying to get out. She's got the seatbelt on and stuff, and so I help her out and everything, and she calms down a little bit. So then we enter into the mall, and we kind of got like this pact, and I reiterated it to her. It's like, when I'm with you and in your place, and you tell me something to do, I do it without question, right? And so I said, same applies here. And because you know, even though she's, not real noticeable, I didn't want anything to get, uh, out of, didn't want to have her exposed or anyway. So anyway, we're walking through, and this is where I really started to learn about the female gene is alive and well into the future and into the alien race. Because as we're walking, she started to get consumed with like trying to learn fashion and stuff, and how she was a failure the first time I saw her, when she had brought on clothes she thought was appropriate. And this time, it was much better. But it was kind of like we'd be walking along, and she's looking at everybody, and she's pulling me, and she's going to these windows of the women's clothes shops and stuff, and kind of like the hot topic and sort of thing. And she's just getting all excited and everything. And so we did actually go into one, and she's like feeling the material and stuff. And then one of the helpers there came over and asked if they could help. And I knew that maybe we should get out of here this time. And so we left the store, and then and it kept happening at different places. Then she started to notice, all the lights and everything, and she's just like a little kid in Wonderland, right? And she started noticing women wearing, earrings, and some of them with all kinds of crazy, piercings and stuff. And she started to ask me about that, and it was like, yeah, I said, maybe we can talk about some of that later. It's just a fashion statement in a sense. But she really gravitated to the women who were just the earring. And later, as we're walking down through the mall, there's this shop, and a lady standing out front, announcing that they're, giving free piercings for any purchase of earrings. So, she's like, can I, sort of thing. And so I take her off to the side where we could sit down, and I explain to her about piercing, and I tell her what goes on and everything, and it might hurt a little bit, but it's no big deal. And so she was in for it. And so figure out, well, how am I going to do this really? And it really wasn't rocket science or anything. So we went in, and she goes, she was looking at Sam Jesse sitting in this chair, and she goes, I'm going to have to remove your sunglasses. And she kind of looked at me and panicked a little bit, and I said, "Oh, it's okay. She needs to wear those. She just had, her eyes dilated and stuff, and she needs to wear those for at least 3 hours, and the lights are kind of bright in here and stuff." And she goes, "Oh, okay, no problem." And so then it gets to the point where she's like pushing her hair back and looking at her ear, and yeah, their ears are really similar to ours, but they're longer and narrower, and almost as though it looked like there should be a tip there, right? But there isn't. And she goes, your ears are quite different. And I says, yeah, that's because she has a long lineage of being, a Nordic person, sort of. And she goes, oh yeah, it's been a long time since I pierced a Viking, and Sam just kind of looked at me, and I said, yeah, it's okay. And so it went on, and she got her earrings, and there's little crosses and stuff, and she was so excited about this. And then and we exit out there, and she's just like looking for anywhere she can see a reflection. And then and the women's gene still wasn't over with, because as we're going around at the end of the mall, I'm thinking, okay, we're good and about to get out of here. And what happens is that she sees a shoe store, one of those massive shoe stores. And so we have to go in, and it was really comical. She was like, what do women wear? And I was showing her, the different types, from tennis shoes to high heels and stuff. And so she puts on the high heels because she wants to be formal, and she couldn't do it. It was hilarious. She goes, why do women want to torture themselves? And we passed on that, but she was still sort of stuck on it. It's like she wanted to do it. Yeah, I mean, that's what women do, so that's what she wanted. But then we started to work our way down. We got to these tennis shoes, and she found ones that were pink, and they were actually pretty cool. And she put them on, and she was just like moving back and forth, almost dancing with them, so happy about them. And she wanted them really bad. And I'm trying to think in my head, because I know their shoes kind of form to your foot, and it's just amazing. I mean, why would you want to wear one of these when, anyway, I knew she really wanted them, and it be appreciated. So I got her the tennis shoes. And so as we're walking, it was kind of like a little kid walking with, looking at her feet as they were moving. And then on our way out, there was a little place, it was a smoothie shop, and I knew that they liked strawberries and stuff. So I thought, well, I'll make this or have them make one a strawberry smoothie. And if she doesn't like it, then obviously I can suck it up. So, um, anyways, I give it to her, and she starts holding it and almost spilling it and dancing. She was so happy with it. She just loved it. And so, that I knew right then that was going to become a thing on the ship and stuff, because they have, their little machine or wall thing that produces anything that they put into it, right? And so anyway, she just absolutely loved that. And we made our way back, and uh, we went to the ship, and so she's still bouncing off the walls about all this. And the whole point before we even went to the mall was, we had to get there to ceremony, but we don't have any time schedule, so we just sort of went on our way, right? But she hated the Jeep. That would be a big deal later on too. And so anyway, we get back to the ship, and of course she has to go and tell everybody. And then I'm seeing in the room, the captain's kind of serious, and there's this lady that I had seen down at the by the ships, and she was the one that had the kids there that she was watching over, um, which is pretty significant later into the other book and other books. So, but anyways, at this point, I had not known her, and I could just feel this thing about her. She was really something. And when I've been in front of many very large spiritual leaders, Dalai Lama and these other people, and there's something different about them, right? And that's what I was feeling from her. And I got close to her, and and she called me by my full name, which I hadn't told anybody my full name. I had only told them Z. And this lady's a lot taller than me, and and she was like overwhelming in energy. And she just reached out to me, and she said she hugged me and explained, she knows how I've been teaching them hugging and touching and stuff like that. And so she held me, and I felt like I just sort of went into her, and I just sort of disappeared, and I felt comfortable. I felt like I was safe in a way. And so once that was done, um, she talked to me for a little bit, and then um, we made our she made arrangements into the living room for us. And it was kind of like what I call like a dentist chair that was malleable, and asked me to sit on it. And all of them were around me, the whole family. And I lay down on this thing, and the what happened first was that they all laid their hands on me, completely around me. And then she came to around my head and put her hands near my head and started to talk, and then to start to chant. I didn't understand what they were saying, but it sounded very similar to like the monks, the Buddhist chants. And um, some of them the tones were deeper and then longer, and then the others started to join in. And it it evolved into more of music than it did the chanting. Yet the chanting was still predominant. And I just felt like I didn't exist anymore, but I was fully aware, right? And it just felt so good, and all my pains, everything was just leaving me, and I could just feel this warmth, and I was experiencing, again, here's the word, love again. And it's so been redefined to me since I've met these people. So it's because it's so far beyond, it's allowing yourself, I think, is what it is to feel love rather than trying to define it. And uh, so, then things started to calm down, and I'm still just like in this state of bliss. And um, I could feel Sam Jess's hand, squeezing my hand, and she's basically saying, you can come back now, sort of thing. And so I start to awake, and I open my eyes, and I'm, it's just amazing. It's like the whole front of the ship was gone. It was just disappeared. Where I was setting, it was angled up a little bit, and I could see like the moon, and there's no front of the ship. I mean, it was just like right there in front of it, like on the edge of a porch, looking at this moon that just encompassed my entire view. And it was just so beautiful. But, and then I looked around for Mother, and she is gone. And she had just came back to give me this gift in a ceremony, the toning, the music, and the love. And so, anyway, that was my experience with the ceremony, and meeting Mother, who becomes predominant in this adventure. So, anyways, that's it for this one on one. And stay tuned for some more. And yeah, like and share and do any of that good stuff too. Sorry about that. um, yeah, comment, ask questions, whatever you want. And then there's also, the Plejaren Diaries at proton.com. So you can always email me too. So, anyways, thanks a lot. Hope you enjoyed it. See ya.